now we are complete. So welcome everyone to our Fireside Chat. I'm Kara Schuler.
And I'm Mohammed Ahmed from Silver Grain Classics.
That's right. And we're very happy to be back. We no longer are imagining that we're sitting around the fireplace. Now we're imagining that we are sitting around a campfire and roasting whatever it is that you like to roast, marshmallows, hot dogs, whatever. But we're going to have a fun time sitting around talking about analog photography like we always do. So welcome to all of you joining us as an audience, and a special welcome to our panelists who are joining us from around the world today. So happy you can all be with us. I'm going to take a couple of minutes to just give our little introduction today. One thing I thought people might be interested to know is that a colleague of ours, Christopher Osborne, has recently brought out a book, which is the very first handbook for the Highland split grade controller. And this is a really, really helpful resource. I can really recommend it. Anyone who has a Highland split grade controller, this has all the information to help you make the most out of it, because it's got so many bells and whistles, and there hasn't really been a comprehensive handbook before. So bravo to Christopher for putting that out and doing such a fabulous job about being organized and putting all the information clearly. That can be ordered over our website. There'll be a link at the end. And I also want to mention that, ta-da, the most recent issue of Silver Grain Classics has just come out.
Number 11.
Yes, number 11. So we were very excited about this issue. And we are also particularly excited to have one of the featured artists in the issue with us today, and that's Heather. And I'm going to try to pronounce your name correctly, not with a German accent. It is Oelklaus, right?
Perfect.
Oh, thank goodness I made it. So welcome, Heather. And yeah, we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say about yourself and your work, and seeing a little bit of what you do. So Heather.
Oh, would you like me to start?
I would like you to start. Oh, that's all the introduction I'm going to do today.
That's awesome. I love it.
Okay.
I think there's some slides to go up too. Wonderful. I love that picture that you showed of me, because I do love anaglyph photography. Also, I love changing photography into the unexpected form. And so that anaglyph, those cyan and red glasses, and that technique in itself takes the 2D into 3D, which explains exactly what I love to do with photography. But I started out in photography at a young age in high school. I was raised in a small Iowa town with a very a community that encouraged art just as much as they encouraged sports, which is very unheard of in like small town Midwest. So I have to give snaps to my art teacher, Mr. Hildebrandt, and my parents that would buy me anything art supply related, as long but not like jeans and like fancy clothes. They would go for the art supplies, and that was just fine. So that was wonderful. You can change the slide. The first slide is an example of a camera that I've made. I love making pinhole cameras and kind of hacking other commercially made cameras. This one is kind of wonderful for this talk today, since we have Cinestill here also. They can recognize this camera right off the bat, I'm sure. So this is a Kodak film, movie film can. I put 9 pinholes in it, and took it on a trip to Port Aransas, Texas. There they have these kind of touristy spots where you can walk into a shark's mouth. And that's how you enter into these tourist shops. It's kind of frightening. And so I thought, what movie deals with like being scared of sharks? Well, that's like Jaws. So I thought of Jaws. And so I made this piece that's called Galeophobia, which is the fear of sharks. And so with my work, when I'm making cameras, I like to be inspired by the camera itself. When I was younger, I majored in sculpture at the Kansas City Art Institute. And so sculpture has like a huge um, a huge meaning in my life. My father built our house, and so I was raised around tools, and I love those kind of tools. So to make a camera myself is a high achievement. I feel way more in control of the process, way more in control of what I want to photograph. I'm inspired by these objects that I turn into cameras, which anything can be turned into a camera. It's just how much light tightness you have to give it. So if you look around where you're sitting right now, you could probably in the 10 feet radius of where you're sitting, make about, a few different cameras. This is a bellhop cart that I shrouded and made a multiple pinhole camera, three apertures, and just took that around campus where I worked and shot pictures. I made paper negatives mostly, and then with these I did contact printing to achieve this. Next slide, please. This is Charlie the Starfish Tuna camera. It's a commercially made camera back in 1971 by the Starkist company. You could buy it for $4.95 plus 3 labels from cans, proof of purchase, and then you could have this camera. It's quite large. Nowadays on eBay, I think I bought this for $100. And unfortunately, it takes 126 canister film. So I just blackened out the back and put paper negative in and shot this picture of a gentleman on the dock fishing. I think that's just kind of hilarious that a fish is taking a picture of a fisherman. Like, who's capturing who? Next slide, please. And then my largest pinhole camera is Little Miss Sunshine. She's a 1977 Chevy box truck. I bought back in 2012. Pretty easy to shoot. I drilled a hole on the side. It's on the passenger side on the long ways. And then I put a viewing hole that's like the size of a dime. And then put a tiny aperture, which is 1.5 millimeters. And so she's F1497 for all the technical people in our crowd. To shoot her, I shoot paper negative so I can load the film using like a red safe light, like a headlamp. And so I'm in the back of my truck in the dark with my red headlamp on, and I can use like Ilford Pearl 8x10 sheets of paper. I have a wall that's metal, and I have little tiny magnets that I put on each corner of the photos. And so to make an 8x10 foot photograph, I use about 84 sheets of 8x10 paper. And of course, since it's photographic paper that you use in the darkroom, the positive world is negative on the wall, and what I shoot is what I show. So they're one of a kind. So this one here was a 3-part one where I shot the image, moved the truck 10 feet, shot it again, moved it 10 more feet, and did that. This ended up being a 35-foot long photograph, which I never want to do ever again. So it was very physical, and then just trying to have your eyes adapt between each time was very difficult. So I do love just bouncing around town in Little Miss Sunshine and watching the world just go upside down. I think for this time in this past year with the pandemic, if you ever get a chance to experience what it's like being in a camera obscura, I would recommend it, because I feel like we've all lived in a camera obscura this last year with the pandemic. Because what happens when you're inside a camera obscura, the world is upside down and backwards. So inside the truck, the sky is on the ground is on the ceiling. Things are still moving around you. There's a level of discomfort, unusualness, loneliness when you're sitting there in the dark, which are all words that you can describe that how I felt during, and many people felt during the lockdown. And so I'm shifting into making more objects of contemplation, like this camera obscura dollhouse behind me, which really gives a nod to this time during the pandemic and how our homes were all turned upside down. Thank you very much. I appreciate you giving me a platform to be able to discuss my work.
Well, that was very, very interesting and partly really funny and very amusing. And it's a kind of cool approach. Now we have our next panelist is Edwin Molenaar from Catawiki. He is he's the curator for the camera part, and he would be the right person to evaluate the price of your yellow truck, your camera truck, when you're going to sell it via Catawiki.
It's one of a kind, so it's priceless.
Yeah. Well, Edwin is from the Netherlands, and well, he is a camera nerd. I just must say, because I don't say it demeaning. It's kind of like, so I'm one too, and I think you also live in a house. Your camera obscura is because your house is full of cameras, isn't it?
Yes, it's a lighthouse.
Okay.
Say not a dark room, but it's a lighthouse full of cameras. Well,
okay.
Not the house, but my office is, and that's.
But what's more interesting is the concept of Catawiki, which is because we have more and more problems to get cameras nowadays,
yeah.
And I think you guys have an interesting concept of getting people, or just that people change old cameras from one person to the other. Maybe tell us about it.
Well, the way we work is people make their lots, their advertisements, and we get them in our mailbox. And in our mailbox, we go and have a look at what people are offering. And if the things that they are offering are what they say it is, because sometimes you get a picture from one camera and then a description from another camera, and that's not what we want to advertise on the platform. And then we ask for adjustments on a lot. Also, we manage expectations from the buyer and the seller. We do that by evaluating the lots that are coming in. Sometimes people have ridiculous amounts of money they want for their cameras, and they think they have like gold in their hands, and then it's just one of the thousands that was made, and we tell them that it's not possible to sell for that kind of money. And now with the analog revival, we are especially looking at cameras that are still usable for everybody who wants to use film photography. And then it's we help people to test their cameras, and we go and visit sometimes people that have large collections, or to see if it's valuable enough to sell, if it's or if it's just not valuable enough and they will want to keep it. We have different kinds of people selling their cameras. We've got most of the times it's one-of-a-time sellers that find cameras in the attic or inherit cameras from their grandfather or their father, and want to sell it off. And when it's not valuable enough, they might, most of the time, they keep it as a reminder. So
how's the way to get, I think you work as an auction house, and I can browse through the amount of cameras there. I can search what I'm looking for, and how does that work?
Well, we have weekly auctions, not only for cameras, but also for, we say, anything that's collectible or odd, you can buy at our platform. We don't do new items. Everything that's still available in shops, we don't sell. And then we target specific audience, because somebody who wants a Leica camera is another buyer than somebody who wants a Beaulieu film camera. So we have special auctions for Leica, we have special auctions for film and video, we have special auctions for Hasselblad, everything that's from the 19th century. Every month we have a stereoscopic auction that sells cameras, viewers, reels, everything you might want in stereo photography.
Mm-hmm. And how long are you now in the market? I think you started, when did you
started as a Catawiki started in 2011, but the first auction was 2013. Mm-hmm. And since then we are just building the platform and growing and rebuilding the platform all of the time.
And it's available from the entire world, so an Australian customer, or is that is there a limitation in region?
There are some limitations. We mainly focus on Europe, mm-hmm. And we had some bad experience with over the world selling and buying, and to minimize friction between sellers and buyers, we just went back from all of the world to the focus of Europe, and we're still seeing if we can expand to Southeast Asia, where we've got a lot of buyers at the moment. So that's a market that's being opened up right now. But the main focus is Europe. So,
and if I want to sell something, I'm contacting you via email. Or what is the best way? I have to register at your platform?
You can register at the platform. There's a link to register. Then you can offer your first lots, and then I get them in the mailbox. Or if you've got a large collection for sale, you can contact us through the customer support, or if you've got email addresses from the auctioneers, then you can directly contact us as well.
That's an interesting offer for private people, but also for professional sellers.
Yeah, we've got private sellers, but we also have shops, big shops, small shops that only do in analog photography or do in analog and digital. We have a small digital auction as well for young timers and the nowadays classical digital cameras from the 1990s.
Should be our next magazine, Digital Classics or something.
Yeah. Well, I always have hashtags with the real digital classics. That is digital classics, so that's how you find some cameras.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Edwin. I think we can have later on a lot of time in the second round to talk about gear, and I'm sure there will be.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing what you think.
Some behind me, so.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure we want to ask you about that later.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing what you think of the state of the camera market, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Right now, I'd like to introduce our next guest, who is Jan Schlegel, who is a really, really fantastic photographer. He was on the cover of one of our magazines. I think you can still see it here. I'm holding it up. This is when we were still the Photo Classic brand before we had our rebranding to Silver Grain Classics. But Jan has had such an interesting life story and progression to where he has been and where he is now, and all the things that have come in between. So I'm very much looking forward not only to seeing his amazing photos and sharing that with all of you, but also having Jan say a little bit about himself and his work and his motivations. So Jan, welcome. So glad to have you here.
It's okay.
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. Okay, it's amazing to be here. Lots of greetings from Paris. I'm here since a few days taking pictures of some amazing models, and so I'm right now in the studio. And on the left-hand side is the flash system and the background. So, but I'm really feeling privileged to be part of this show, and I hope I can contribute a little bit to it. Well, there's not so much to say about me. I'm not so important. Yes, I do take pictures, and I take them with not with my iPhone, but I prefer something like this. I don't know if you can see it. I only see my Jan Schlegel intro here.
Was it Linhof for those? I think so. Was it Linhof? Yes. It's
a Linhof Master Technica, a pimped one. Linhof made it special, nice and red, and I loved it this way. I wanted it this way. So my main thing I'm doing is portraiture photography. This is my passion. This is what I love. The series here, what you see now is the crocodile and some others, are the tribal people of, for example, this one in Ethiopia. This is literally how I started. You know, I was trying to find a way how I can capture the beauty, the uniqueness, the dignity, the life a little bit of this tribesman and this woman in this tribe. And I wanted to do it in a way that depth is communicated. So I brought my studio there. I have my large format there, and I shoot completely on film. And then in the darkroom, I develop it, and then I partially selectively tone the skin and the hair. This gives it quite a dynamic feel of the image. Maybe you can go to the next one. So in this way, a series of probably 100 pictures is developed, and
Die einzige Option, die ich gefunden habe, dass du das
and I never expected really to show them. I took them from me. I kept them actually pretty private, and only friends were able to see them. And then they invited me they bought for my birthday the entrance to an art fair where artists could exhibit directly and sell directly. And so I had this little booth. They bought it for me, and I showed my pictures, and I was so surprised, and people really loved it. And this was my beginning a little bit in the art market. Maybe go to the next one. So for 15 years, I did nothing else except traveling to Africa. And sometimes to Asia and Afghanistan and Pakistan, India, but mainly Africa, taking pictures of those tribal people. Probably 100 trips, I don't know. I would need to count the stamps in my passports. Invested a lot of money in it, and so a big series actually came together. It's called Essence. It turned into a book, and I love to show this especially in exhibitions. I take pictures for the walls. I don't take pictures for Instagram. I don't take it really for books. I want my pictures on the walls of people, you know, in their living rooms and wherever they work, or in galleries or museums. So this is the Essence series. Okay, then I felt like, well, all my photography is connected to traveling, and I felt I want to do something else, and I need to do something that's not people. I'm a very introverted, shy person, so taking pictures of people takes a lot of energy of me, and I felt, I want to do something new. I was thinking what would be a cool concept, what would be a cool project, and I want to do something, you know, that helps society a little bit. And I felt, well, the sea, the darkness of the sea is so hidden, and people are afraid, and fish is ugly for most people. And I want to show the beauty and discover the beauty of fish. So I decided I want to start a series, Creatures of the Seven Seas. So I went to Portugal, to the first fish harbor I could find, and I was so amazed about the fish. Until then, all the fish was kind of goldfish that I knew, or shark. You know, I didn't know all the things in between. And I went through this fish market totally excited, you know, and then I was looking for a way how I can capture this. And this octopus was, for example, taken in Zanzibar. It's a black octopus. And so I took the picture. It was pretty complicated to take it this way, you know, with all these curls, and that it actually looks a little bit alive. And later on, I ate it.
Good.
So all the fish I ate, all the fish also, most people always ask, you know, what was the fish alive? No, the fish was dead, point. Except for one photo shoot. So this is, you know, I thought about, I need something what enhances our imagination, you know, where when we think about the deep sea, about the oceans, you know, I want the secrets a little bit, you know, the things we never see, but they are a little bit mystical, you know, and I thought, what could this be? And then I said, oh, a seahorse. And I want a really small, I knew exactly what kind of seahorse I wanted. And so I contacted a breeder of seahorses in Germany because they are highly protected like tigers. Yeah. And I said, I need a seahorse. So I actually need two, a male and a female. And he said, yeah, he's going to sell them to me. And it was a fortune. And I said, well, I need them dead, you know. And he said, well, he has no dead ones, but often in the process, you know, of growing them, some die. And then I said, well, this is the ones I wanted, hoping I would get them cheaper, but actually it was more expensive. So he kept them in the deep freezer for me, two of them. And then I went there and picked them up. They are tiny, you know, they are 3 centimeters. And I was so shocked when I unfroze them, how beautiful they are. And this picture was taken with an 8x10 camera. And you can imagine, you know, a 3 centimeter little object and the 8x10 inch, the 25 centimeter big film. I had a bellow extension of 1.20 meters. And but I really wanted this picture. And this became one of the iconic pictures of the series. This, and then you know, the series was very successful, and then I thought, what else could I do? You know, I want to show something that deals with death. I want to also show something that deals with fear. Fear is such an issue in these days, especially also during COVID, and so many have a fear problem. And I felt, wow, what could I do? And then I thought, snakes, no idea what I'm talking about. So I first took a picture to try it out. I knew I needed deadly snakes. So the first pictures I took was a python, which is not dangerous, you know, at all. It was just a tiny little snake, just to see if I'm getting excited. And yes, I did get excited. And then I contacted a snake breeder in Thailand and explained what I was doing. And a week later, I was in Thailand taking pictures of cobra and some vipers. And this turned into a series. It's called A Fear and Death. They are all platinum prints like the fish. This is a cobra, a white cobra. And you never know what shape they're gonna make. Yeah, the other one, the first picture was a mamba, a green mamba, very, very dangerous, very difficult to take. And I took this one actually in Czech Republic, yeah, with a breeder lady. And so we said we have one chance, and this beautiful snake, which is probably the most aggressive and deadliest snake on planet Earth, you know, made this beautiful double heart. And I was shocked, you know, and I mean, unfortunately, you don't see even a little bit the beauty of this snake because all the detail is gone. But I would encourage you to go to my website and just try to find it. Yeah, so so this is kind of the stuff I'm doing. With all my work, I'm trying to communicate. I'm trying to show the beauty, but I'm also trying to give something into society, what I believe is important. It's either understanding of beauty or dealing with some issues we are dealing with every day. So for me, it's photography. It's kind of a language. It needs to have kind of content, and for me, really important at the end is the print. You know, I feel today in photography we are forgetting the print. Yeah. You know, we talk so much and we look so much on the screens, but we don't have the pictures anymore on the wall as something physical in the hand. And this is not photography to me. It needs to be, I need to be able to have it in the hands or frame it and put it on the wall. Then it's photography. So I think I'm already way over my time. I could speak for hours.
It was exciting, especially. I also would like to mention one thing. We had a talk before, and we just thought also it would be cool to make a workshop in the Silver Grain Studio Lab with you.
Would be amazing, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you want to learn how to work or to get an idea about Jan's workflow and more of his stories, and it was about portrait photography we're planning. We will do a workshop soon, or we'll announce a workshop soon with Jan Schlegel here, but now I'm in our Silver Grain Studio Lab. And thank you, Jan. That will bring us workshops, because we have here two twins, or twins are always two, I think. They brought back a product I would love to use in one of our film noir workshops soon, the Double X. And cinefilm is something, these guys, they have definitely the fame that they
Claim to fame.
the claim to fame that they brought back, or at least brought cinefilm available for most still photographers that never used it before. So Brendan and Brian Wright from Cinestill, how do you do? Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
How you doing?
So we started Cinestill back in 2013, mostly out of a passion for photography and a desire for ourselves to be able to shoot the film that we were already shooting for music photography and wedding photography, which is motion picture film. A big difference between motion picture film and still photography film is it is always the most advanced technology was released for motion picture first. That is a big part of it. And then another big part of it is the purpose of motion picture film, and the performance is extremely, very critically high. So in order to project something off of a 35mm negative, which in motion is a half frame photo, onto a 50-foot silver screen and still look beautiful, that film's got to be ridiculously sharp. It's got to have really fine grain and ultra high performance. We realized this when we were shooting a lot of Super 8 and 16mm, some music videos and some weddings. And we would be shooting a wedding, for example, and get down to the reception, and we'd have our portrait loaded into our film cameras. We were 100% film. That's the way we marketed ourselves. We didn't shoot any digital at weddings. And this was back in the
early 2000s?
Yeah, like 2010, roughly. Yeah. And we would get the 16mm or Super 8 footage back and see the color there and be like, how is a negative this big outperforming my other color film that I'm shooting, whether it's 400H or Portrait 400, that's this big, or even medium format. And so we said we have to shoot this for our clients, for our workflow, because we're not switching to digital and low light. We need a film that can perform under tungsten light, which most motion picture film shot is under tungsten hot lights, because that's how they film on set. And we needed that in our cameras. So our first solution was to take our Nikon F3, and we bought several of these backs. They're 250 exposure backs, and they take cassettes of film that look like, oops, this. And so that's 33 feet or 10 meters of film, which is 250 exposures. And we had to do that because the film cannot be processed anywhere but a motion picture lab. It has an additional backing layer that normal still photography films don't have, that is made out of carbon that's removed before all processing is done. But that black backing layer is a protective layer for when it's going through the camera, so it doesn't get scratches. It prevents static at high speed, and also it has anti-halation properties. But it's a real pain in the butt to remove yourself in the darkroom, and any type of lab is going to refuse to deal with it because it's such a mess. It'll ruin their chemistry.
It'll ruin their chemistry and dirty up their tanks, and any other film being processed, it could damage and cause underdevelopment and sludge and things like that. Yeah. So that has been known for a very long time, because people have tried this and labs have been very mad at them for like spooling into a little cassette. But we figured, why not? We already have a relationship with a great motion picture lab out here that does a lot of the Hollywood films. We knew the lab tech we talked through it with them, and they could take lengths that were 33 feet because the loops, it's a tension-based drive. So as it goes through the machine continuously in loops, it wraps around the rollers, and if there's tension, the rollers are spinning, it'll grab the film and move it. If it gets loose, it won't move. And if you splice something, the racks are very tall. If your film isn't as long as a rack or even two loops, too much tension will be applied and it'll rip it apart at the splice. So 33 feet was the compromise. Luckily that worked. And we used it for a long time with several of these F3s and got some great work out of it. We were basically getting dailies back from the lab. And then we'd scan them ourselves. And that was fun. And a lot of the photographic community that followed us really was excited about it and wanted to try it. No one wanted to buy a 250 exposure back and carry it around.
And us, and ourselves included, got a little tired of a 12-pound camera on our shoulder during a 10-hour wedding.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were like, okay, Kodak's not going to release these stocks in still photography format. It was during the massive decline, and we're like, and you know, we just need to figure out a way to get rid of this pesky remjet so that we can put it in our Leica camera, something much smaller, much easier to carry around while shooting, and more enjoyable to shoot. And so that started a process that took probably 5 years, tens of thousands of feet of film. We built a machine that could safely remove that layer that was incompatible with still photography processing, so that the film could be just shot and then processed in normal still photography labs. You can take it to your local photo lab, 1 hour photo, professional photo lab, whatever. They just run it through the machine. It behaves just like a normal still photography film.
It produces a C41 negative, which has slightly higher gamma than ECN2 because the ECN2 Prit film is higher contrast, so it wants a lower contrast negative. But RA4 paper wants the higher contrast negative with a little higher density, so it actually works out perfectly. As you can see from all the photos that people share with Cinestill, that the varying degrees of quality of scan, still there's beautiful images, the colors are accurate, and we love shooting it all the time. And at first it was just for us. And
Cinestill was started in 2013. Maybe the name came around 2012.
Yeah.
But we were already shooting the film in our cameras probably 2011.
Yeah.
And then we had friends, specifically through a film photography group, which was mostly wedding photographers that all shot film, on Facebook, called Film Shooters.
Yeah.
And people were just saying, can you send me a roll? Can you send me a roll? And so we went, okay. Well, we are making a lot of it because we were doing it in raw format before exposing it. So we were working with hundreds, if not thousands of feet at a time when we would get rid of the remjet. But we had to do some QC and stuff, of course, before we released it to general public. And once we were happy with it, we did like a soft release in Las Vegas in 2013 with the film show with Ryan Muirhead, Jan Schultz, Tanya Lippert. They were doing this like online TV show that was about shooting film. Super fun. But we got to do an episode with them where they all got to try this new film.
Yeah.
And since then, it's just been kind of a whirlwind.
Yeah.
Originally photographers, but now throughout that entire process, we're very DIY, very backyard. We built our own cameras too. We modified lenses and like doing.
More important, you brought it as 120 also.
Yes. So then, in 2015, we 2016, 2017, right around that time, because we ran a Indiegogo and raised money for it from the community. And then after that, obviously, it takes about a year or so to release. But then we released finally 120, which is work released only by us. Some people know that motion picture film doesn't come in 120 format. They do 65 millimeter, which is not the same.
Not quite the same.
It's just a little bigger, and there's perforations that go into the image area. So this is working tightly in collaboration with Kodak themselves, and we've developed a really good relationship with them as well. So, viva la resistance.
Hence the hats.
Yeah, Kodak has been really good working it through all the turmoil that they've gone through. They're still really strong supporters of film, and strong supporters of us. We're very grateful.
And lately you got it also as double X in 120.
Yes. So this is our latest release. We announced it last week. We've done the double X and 35 since pretty early on. I think it was our third film that we released. but we just released it in 120, which is a huge accomplishment and hopefully leading to more and more.
And that's the next one we're going to try for our workshops too. So kind of, especially with because we mainly use medium format cameras, mainly Hasselblads, and then 35 is well known, but the 120 is great. Well, perfect. So that's a cool, exciting story. I think.
Yeah.
Everybody to unmute your microphones, Heather and Edwin. Then I think we can move on to our little discussion so we can talk to each other a little bit now. But I want to thank you all for those introductions that you did. And you all are doing such fascinating work in different parts of the film community. And I think it's really exciting that you have such different focuses, but there are so many areas where your work also overlaps. And so we're really happy to have you here today. So actually, Heather suggested a great icebreaker yesterday when we were talking about, so what are we going to say to each other? Let's see. And she said, maybe we should all just start by talking about what was our first camera. And I have to admit, I don't know the brand of my first camera. I know it was a 110, and I remember having the little, cassette that I snapped in there, and I was about 6 or 7 years old, and I was on vacation with my parents. And I had that camera for exactly 2 days because we went to Carlsbad Caverns, and I fell in love with caves that day. And I've been a caver ever since, and I just adore caves. And I shot my first roll of film ever going in Carlsbad Caverns. And I was so excited. I got to get a souvenir at the souvenir shop. And I put my camera down in the souvenir shop, and I realized it after I checked out, and I went back 15 minutes later and it was gone. So my first ever roll of film was stolen with my first ever camera. So I think, it was
a sad story.
Beginning.
That's a sad story, but look what I got right here. My first camera. Does that look real?
That's 110. Did you find it in a
I was at Carlsbad Cavern. I was in a gift shop. No, I wasn't. But our stories are pretty close. Our stories are pretty close.
Yeah.
I was on a family vacation to the Four Corners area here in Colorado, Mesa Verde, and I think my parents just wanted to shut my brother and I up or something. I don't know. And they stopped and got us both these cameras, and it's a Keystone XR33 110. But I just and the best part was you could put your initials. They had stickers, and you could put your initials on it. So maybe you should have put your initials on your camera.
Yeah.
Or a phone number. Geocoded.
Whoever took that camera wouldn't have given it back in any case, but it might have been worth a try. You never know.
Might have, but that's some bad camera karma. So
it was, yeah.
I remember sitting in the back seat and just obsessively that's running that. I just love the sound of advancing the film. I don't remember shooting on that trip, but I do remember my favorite, in the wintertime in Iowa, there's these huge snow drifts and stuff. And my parents would be like, go outside and do something. We didn't have internet and stuff like that. We didn't have, fun phones or anything we didn't even have cable TV. So I would go take my little 110 camera in the snow and take pictures of animal footprints. So as anyone has ever shot 110 film understands the quality for high key photos, not quite there. And so I took, 20 photos of and it came back just white. Oh. You couldn't see a single footprint. So that's my first camera story.
This is mine.
Oh
wow.
It's an Agfa Klack, isn't it?
Agfa Klack.
Okay.
This is the Click. It's a 6x6 120 film camera. And it was the same kind of camera my parents used to shoot family pictures with. And I wanted one as well. So in a flea market when I was 9 or 10, I bought this for the equivalent of €5. It's $2 right now, and then my mother bought me a film and had it developed. I had to pay the developing myself, and it was quite expensive for a guy of 10 years old. And it was so expensive that what was the first film, was even the last film I ever shot with this camera. It was too expensive for me. And then a couple of years later, I bought my own SLR camera, Praktica camera from East Germany, and learned to shoot on that camera. So that's
Well, the Praktica, yeah.
And I shot like hundreds of films with that camera until it broke, and then bought another one.
Well, you can repair Praktikas with a hammer, and
Yeah. Or if they're broken, use them as a hammer.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Later on, yeah.
I love it.
So they're sturdy, but when they're broken, they're broken.
So Jan, what was your first camera?
Mine was a Minolta XG9.
Oh,
A really nice, beautiful camera. I was saving a lot of. I was saving for it, you know. As I was as a teenager, I was trying anyway to get the money together for this camera, and I loved it. It was really serving me well. And about 2 years ago, I got, you know, and of course I don't have this camera anymore, and unfortunately, and Ludwig heard about it, you know, and he got me one and gave me my old XG9 back.
Pictures with it in our magazine, didn't you?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
I took it to Russia to take some pictures with it, and
Yeah.
and I was still able to use it. You know, it's amazing. I still know how it works. You know. Yeah, exactly. So
I remember that.
So thank you, Ludwig. I know you are online, even you are muted.
Yes, I should maybe say Ludwig is running the back end, the technical end for us today. So thank you very much, Ludwig, for doing all the technical end, and so we don't have to push all the buttons, and also for interviewing Jan for that issue of our magazine. But yeah, Brandon, Brian, what were your first cameras?
We often talk about our first camera as being Olympus OM1. That was our dad that we found in a closet back, I guess we were like 14, 15. We were skateboarding at the time, and we wanted to be able to take pictures of each other skateboarding. But actually, if you go back a little, that's when we got serious into photography, was that camera. And I still love that camera. It's a beautiful camera. We have one, I'm not sure where it is, but love shooting with the big, beautiful viewfinder, very simple.
Viewfinder is brilliant, yeah.
I love it.
The OM1 is an amazing camera.
I love all cameras, but that one's pretty special.
Yeah.
But I think actually, when Heather was talking, I was like, oh, wait a second. I think our first camera might have been when we were like 9 or 10 years old, and it was a 110 camera that we shared, because obviously
We're twins.
we're twins, and it's kind of expensive to raise twins at the same time, so we shared a lot of gifts, including a 110 camera.
Otherwise, you would be in stereo photography if we just do it at the same time.
We're pretty good at sharing. That's why we still hang out a lot.
Yeah. I mean, that probably led to us sharing that back camera and then getting more into photography for skateboarding with our dad's OM1. That's why we continued to kind of building our style and working together and capturing images together, throwing the camera back and forth, or cameras, and working on the film processing. And we've always worked together, and it's hard to distinguish our work when we work together, because who actuated the shutter, who saw the moment or set up the shot and directed it and directed the subject matter. So yeah, OM1 is the better answer because that's one I remember using more, but I think as most kids our age, we played around with a little toy camera.
There's the OM1, and then you got a job working at a 1-hour photo lab, so we could afford to process all the film.
I worked technically I worked for a department of Kodak Qualex at 1-hour photo lab as a teenager, and so I'd process the film and make prints, and it was great. That was our intro into photography.
Well, that was pretty clever. I wish I'd thought of that. But another thing I think is really interesting is that all of you have to do with cameras in different ways. And I was wondering how you all see the camera market right now. I mean, okay, Heather, you don't really buy a lot of cameras, but I think it's still interesting to kind of think about what are the possibilities and what are going to be the challenges going forward. Because I mean, if you're going to make your own pinhole cameras, that's cool, and that's one way to go about it. But for people who want to make images with cameras that somebody else has made, it's getting to be a challenge. And I know that everybody has their own kind of perspective on that. So I was hoping that you could kind of start talking about that. Maybe Edwin, you're a good person to start with that.
Yeah, I think that the cameras that were made in the 80s and 70s, 80s, and 90s were most of the times that good that if they still work right now, I think they'll at least keep on working for 10, 15 years, even more. And when you've got the manual cameras like Nikon FM, those cameras are easy to repair when you're a bit into repairing cameras. But what I see around Amsterdam in the Netherlands is that there are several repair shops again that fix analog cameras. And I'm also currently working with a collection and of a collector that has died, and he left his son a cabinet of this big, just with parts. And I'm trying to get those parts to the right new owner.
Yeah.
So that the otherwise the parts would be scrapped and thrown away. So if you've got a good camera and a good manual camera, they will last you a lifetime or 2 lifetimes sometimes. So
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
this guy, the M2.
Yeah, like us. Yeah.
Yeah, this one we got from a guy who actually took it to Vietnam with a friend. They shared the camera in Vietnam, and now we're sharing the camera. But it still works.
Yeah.
It's robust.
That's the thing about Leica. Leica makes it with the German quality standard. You can see it in the prices as well, but it's manageable in repairs as well. So one of my former colleagues was a Leica collector, and he has a camera from the 1940s, 1950s, and it looks like new. It's completely restored, and it feels like new. So it's that a camera like that can go on for 2-3 lifetimes and still be working.
Because we have the technicians to repair them. That's the other half of the equation.
Yeah.
Is we have to have people to pass the skills on to, because a lot of the people who are really experienced, they're now nearing retirement age, and it's something to be concerned about.
Yeah, and older, because I knew a couple of repairmen, and they've all passed away already.
Yeah.
Well, in the region, Leica is just 20, 30 kilometers from us.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, older, retired technicians, they just do in their spare time some repair, service, and maintenance. And even when you give them a call, already from the voice, you notice, oh, I hope I don't say something that shocks them, because they might not survive it, because they're really quite old. And when you visit them, it's kind of very slow, and but they can do an excellent job, because they have skills that you need in order to repair cameras like that. And but what I heard just a few weeks ago is that even Leica is employing new young trainees for these things. So obviously, they also notice that mechanical technicians are more and more asked for. That's definitely something you should consider if you're looking for a job.
Yeah, it's needed as well.
Especially if you're into watchmakers.
Yeah.
They love those watchmakers, and the engineers are great. You know, you said that I probably don't buy too many cameras since I make my own. You know, my website's called camerakarma.com. They'd be years where I'd come home from work and there'd be cameras on my doorstep of my house. People I have pretty big collection, about 215 cameras in my collection.
Oh, okay. Well, that
Yeah.
I did not know that.
But the ones I have recently bought, and I think it's kind of it could be an interesting conversation. And how I think the camera market's going
Mm.
is the 360 virtual reality cameras.
Mm. Yeah.
Those I find are kind of fascinating. That's the last camera I bought was a Insta 360 type of thing.
Mhm.
Just thinking about taking your whole surrounding and being to experience the moment or in a moment or in a place as close as you can. You know, photography's always been like, photography is reality. It's a slice of life. Well, we all know it's not. But I think the journey to try to get there has always been what camera makers are kind of wanting to get. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yeah, I guess that's yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah.
And Jan, what about you? How do you see the large format cameras? I mean, there are people who are 3D printing cameras and all sorts of wild, plywood constructions. But there's a lot of different models that for different price ranges. But how do you see it developing?
Well, let me say it this way. I'm very happy to have my Linhof because it's very solid, and I can take it wherever I want to. But on the other side, I'm getting a guy in Spain is building a 24 inches camera for me right now. So a 50 by 60 centimeter camera, really custom made exactly how I want it. And I'm really looking forward to it, and I know there are amazing companies up there. I just discovered Ghibli or something like this, beautiful cameras, and then of course the Chinese ones, the Chamonix. I own an 8x10 Chamonix, beautiful camera. So I see there is an increase of interest and there is an increase of brands actually coming back. On the other side, we lost some really important ones like Sinar, well, we can discuss if it is dead or not, but I think it is dead. And there are, and some others like what's the brand from Japan? I own one.
Toyo.
No, not a Toyo, much better. I forgot the name. No, also not. No. Man, my camera. I forgot the name of my camera. I took it to all the countries, and it's bad. Yeah.
Like forgetting the name of your child.
Ebony.
Ebony.
Right.
Yeah, Ebony, the Rolls Royce of large format. But I think it's beautiful. So we lost it. And then there's these guys, doing the 3D printing of cameras, and I think it's cool because it leads into serious photography. This is what I want to see. I don't want to see Lomo, honestly. This is I want to see serious photography, where they use real film, not expired film. So, and when you use large format, you usually use real film, and yeah. So I'm totally for it. I wish especially Sina still would be there. I mean, they were just amazing. Yeah,
there is a fascination for a lens, and there is even for you as an artist. Sometimes artists say, oh, "Well, I'm not into gear. I just want to create, and the gear is not really important." But I can see that you have a fascination when you look into a lens. You see the shininess of the coating and all that stuff.
I mean, it is the lens is the key, And it's really funny amongst large format photographers how they are discussing lenses. and so the Africa series, I mean, I was researching for a long time what I would want to use. And I came up with the most expensive 150 millimeter lens you could find. That was the XL 150 aspheric Apo from Schneider. A beautiful lens, and I needed it not only because of the sharpness, but because of the diameter, so the people would think it's a mirror and look into this mirror. So yeah,
If you see, Stanley Kubrick was someone who was crazy about lenses, and I think he was just also, I think, sorry.
Oh, I think, yeah, so I think we're getting little nudges from behind the scenes here, but we did get some questions that maybe we should be moving on to some questions. So let's see, what do we have here? Yeah, we have a question for Cinestill. Could you speak a little bit about another new product, the ECN2 kit? How did the colors compare when developing Cinestill 800T or 500D in ECN2 versus C41?
The colors, depending on how you correct it when printing or scanning, the colors are not really any different. You're not going to see a shift in colors or a different cast or anything like that. When you look at if you go to cinestillfilm.com, you can see a little bit of an explanation on this on the listing for the CS2 kit, because the active developing agents and the formula for the developer creates your negative image, and it does it just the same way that a motion picture developing lab would. So it creates a very similar sensitometry. But the other steps remaining have to do with long roll developing, reusing of chemicals, replenishing of chemicals, and so on. Whereas this is meant to be used by hand at home. So it's a little simpler, some combined chemistry, but it should be the same quality as from a motion picture lab. And like we said, we started with motion picture lab processing and moved on from there to make the film, our film, Cinestill, which is for C41 processing. So there are differences, and the main reason we have this kit is to embrace those differences, which is predominantly gamma, or you'd say contrast or density. And all the curves shift basically the same amount, give or take a little bit, and print on their respective formats correctly. So if you took a C41 negative of Cinestill film or a Kodak film or any other color film, processed correctly, and you print it on RA4 paper, it prints relatively easily with a very similar contrast. Where with the ECN2 process, or our CS2 simplified process, it creates a lower contrast negative, which will print much lower contrast, more linear looking on RA4 paper, and then more cinematic, a little higher contrast if you print it on ECP print film. Because it's higher contrast medium.
To distill it down, it's basically the difference that you're going to get is if you've ever printed in the darkroom, a normal negative could take like 10, 15 seconds to print on your paper. An ECN2 negative, which is much lower contrast and thinner, will take 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, 2 seconds or something.
And this is on purpose because for the motion picture workflow, you need fast print times.
Yeah,
because you're running a lot of prints when you make those contact prints onto those direct reliefs, or you're doing interneg or whatever. You don't want a lot of density. So there's just different gammas, different spectrums, and that's controlled by the developer. So that can also be very helpful in the hybrid era of digital scanning of film, and you want to start with a lower contrast negative. That's okay.
Yeah.
With a digital scanner, you can do that. And what you're mostly going to notice is on a high contrast scene, with Ektar, for example, you process that through our CS2 kit. It's not going to be nearly as
contrasty,
hard to scan.
Yeah,
it's going to be much lower contrast, thus slightly lower saturation. It basically makes it into a different film. It's like the difference between Portra UC and NC.
Yeah.
It's just a different rendering of the same colors.
People are familiar with this with black and white processing. You choose the developer, they give you different contrast levels and different dilutions to give you different contrast levels, so on. And then, but overall, with that's just a little bit into that direction, because with black and white, you can adjust micro contrast, acutance, and surface development and stuff like that too. So that's like way more complex because it's easier because it's just developing monochrome. But this is just to open up more possibilities for getting a different look out of your film.
Okay, cool. Well, that was a great
very
answer.
detailed.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. That's what
No,
people
perfect.
ask the question for a reason. So I'm glad that you were able to answer it. So we have a question to Jan. Did you already use a 4x5-inch camera as a commercial photographer? And if not, what made you choose large format when you came back to photography?
When I was working commercial, I was using 6x7, so medium format mainly. I owned a RB67, beautiful camera from Mamiya. I started large format when I looked at my negatives from Africa, my first trips there, and I realized I need more detail. I need more sharpness, and I also felt like the depth of the picture is not there. So I was experimenting a lot. How can I get this depth and the sharpness? And so I bought a large format camera. I felt this is the answer, and it was the answer, or one of the answers. I also wanted something where I'm even slower and where the environment would feel the importance of the photo shoot, you know. And when I put up my large format camera on my tripod, and it looks really important, you know. And then I kneel in the dirt, you know, and I have my dark cloth over me, you know, and then I go with the magnifier on the screen. It looks like it's really, really important. And this translates into the intensity of the subject you are taking a picture of. You know, it's so important, you know, and then they look into this lens as it's a magical thing, you know. So this basically was the main was when I started with 4x5, and then later I bought an 8x10, and I was amazed by the difference between 4x5, the depth that you can capture between 4x5 and 8x10. And then I got my 8x10 a little bit handy, you know, and then I realized, wow, I can go 50, 60, you know, and in Russia, with my friends there from Art of Photo, you know, I was able to use their 50, 60 for portrait. And since then, I was dreaming about one because it's so different. Oh. It slows you so much down. It makes it so intentional what you're doing. Mm. It's not a click anymore, you know. It's €100.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love this. I love this. And you're so slow, and you need two people to operate the machine. And so. Yeah, I want the intensity of the photography, you know. It's and that you have the feeling, you know. You put the film in, and I think really feeling your photography is the key. And for me, only the 4x5, at least a large format camera, is actually able to give this. And also the other thing is, I want to stand next to the camera, not over the camera. When I shoot, I don't want to look through a viewfinder. I want to look at the model, at the subject I'm taking a picture of. I want to have this intense communication, and then release with my cable release.
That's really interesting, because we had another cover artist of ours described himself as being quite shy, and he likes to have the waist level viewfinder for exactly that reason, because he doesn't want to have to look at the people that he's shooting.
Yeah,
because it's the only way he can make great portraits.
The
so he doesn't have to look at people.
The same for me, but with large format you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to. And that's why I love it. You know, I cannot withdraw. I'm there. I'm in this connection in this moment.
Oh, that's very interesting.
No, but it's also interesting to see that that when you start to photograph analog on a set, suddenly people think it's important, and that gives analog an extreme value. And I was very happy to hear that the Sinister guys started with wedding film, Super 8 and 16 millimeter, but just in Germany, totally unknown. And I'm so sorry about that, because the Germans, when you talk with them, oh, why should we do that? It can be done digitally and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
I think that's here too.
Yes.
That's everywhere.
Yeah, no, but it's true. I think that even at a wedding where everybody realizes this is a very important moment, it's still, there's an extra special feeling when you have a film camera. I think everybody feels that. It's not just, oh, let's shoot this, and then if it doesn't go right, we'll just shoot it again.
Yeah,
You know?
and everybody has a smartphone anyway. I think the couple who's marrying there gets a lot of photos just from smartphones, and they're all digital. So.
Yeah.
They do see the difference. Yeah,
I do remember shooting weddings. One of the hardest things I always do is getting people to stop taking pictures. Like when the bride walks down the aisle, there's people leaning into the aisle, and you're like, no, move. But you can't really tell them that. I mean, there's something happening. And then so you document it. But then when the family photos are happening, you're getting the groups together, and then there's this crowd of people just taking pictures, and everyone's eyes are just
Shooting around,
every little flash. You got to turn around and you be like, hey guys, see this camera?
yeah.
So this is what they need to look at. Put yours away. Don't worry, they're going to be good photos.
This gets their attention a little bit more.
That's a Rolei, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a SL66.
Yeah, cool.
We have this a lot. It's great because we liked adapting lenses. This is it's a 70 millimeter 8 perf projection lens for like 70 millimeter film. 50 millimeter f2, so really good in low light. Also
sharp.
Dreamy kind of bokeh, and super duper sharp.
Wow.
Hard to focus, but
Really hard.
when wide open. But like, yeah, the cameras we use, even the bulk back camera that so we could shoot motion, it did attract attention when you wanted it to. We still did like to blend in, so we wouldn't dress in all black. We would try to dress like a guest and become familiar with our clients and try to fit in that way. So we'd be a guy with a cool camera instead of somebody just kind of like a hired servant. But to back to your point about shooting motion picture film to document important moments in your life. A lot of people are doing that now for themselves, their children growing up. Went to the Grand Canyon recently and saw someone shooting a Leica Super 8 and his kid, and you see it all the time now, maybe more here in LA. But this is becoming more and more popular, and at weddings, there's a difference. I think also culturally, that it's more similar than different. But there's a slight difference in the U.S. of how we treat weddings. You know, they're kind of grandiose, and I think it's the way marriage has been traditionally thought of in the U.S. for hundreds of years from Puritan upbringing. Is a big part of it, that it's like so sacred, and it's sacred everywhere. People who want to spend the rest of their life together is a big deal. But I think it's been made into an industry that's like a wedding is more valuable than your home, and you're going to spend all your money on it. And that there's something negative about that culturally, I think, but also beautiful at the same time if people don't go overboard. Because I just got married within the last 2 years, and we went to Banff, Canada, and we were budget sensitive, but at the same time wanted to make it special. And it's just,
It's a form of
it's catching on.
Weddings in the U.S. are a form of expression.
Yeah.
So how your wedding goes and how it's documented is more of an outlet of who you are, as opposed to your religion or your parents and what they want for you. It's kind of just the way it is here, which may have fed the industry to have clients say, I want Super 8 for my wedding.
Yeah.
I prefer the classic look. It's more timeless, especially the silent aspect of it, because who wants to into those speeches and toasts?
You can record that
you can
separately.
record that separately if you like, but when you go back to watch a wedding video, do you want to sit down for an hour and 45 minutes? Or do you want to sit down for 8 to 9 minutes and watch the silent film with just all the memories that is romantic and beautiful?
And it gives that dreamy, especially when you look at it 2 or 3 years later, it gives you a wonderful memory of what happened.
Yeah, I just read about a guy who found a Super 8 cassette from his childhood from the 1950s and was able to, view it. And if you think about somebody who finds a digital file, in another 50 years, unless they've taken a really good care of it, they're not going to be able to open it or do anything with it, and that's the thing that really, it scares me in a way. How
3.5-inch floppy disk.
Right. Like how many people's memories are going to be lost without them really understanding what's happening. So I definitely hope that the Super 8 scene keeps picking up. I mean, we all know it's picking up, and it's definitely huge, but I hope it keeps going. I do have a couple more questions I want to try to sneak in here. Someone was asking about the cost of film and processing, and they're a bit worried that it's increasing, and it might actually get to the point where it threatens the market. What do you all think about that? Do you think that the market is able to support things, or?
I think that there's always a lot of fear when things change. A lot of people fear the change, and also fear it's just the tip of the iceberg. It's kind of ridiculous to think that companies such as ourselves and the giants that shoulders we're standing on, that they're going to somehow price themselves out of a market. Like, that's just not business smart. Prices do increase. Inflation happens worldwide. If you consider inflation, actually, like film in the 90s with inflation considered is not cheaper than it is today.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right.
Everything's going up. And honestly, at least in Los Angeles and in the US, labs are getting cheaper.
Yeah, they are getting cheaper actually for professional.
I mean, the worst labs that they all went out of business.
Yeah.
It's the worst labs. But then there were some that stuck around that were kind of okay, and they're really cheap. But most of those labs, the ones that were kind of okay, are having to up their quality to the level of the niche labs that have started up in the US, which are mostly like passionate photographers going, I hate labs, I'm going to start my own one, and they just do a really good quality of work.
Yeah.
And then also there's like the Icon and Richard Photo Lab, who are just top notch. Everything they do, great for professionals, but hard for a consumer to afford. $50 a roll to process and scan.
Yeah.
There's everything in between, but the bottom I think just keeps getting chopped off.
Yeah.
So there may be more expensive options, but the quality level is going up, which is actually the quality of finishing is, I think, the one thing that why there was a cliff of film. When digital came out and there's just the film sales just dropped and went straight down the Grand Canyon, was because of the quality people were getting from film wasn't representative of film, was representative of cheap, crappy finishing by labs.
The 1 hour photos.
So I think it's really more important that we have good quality labs. And the slight increase in price that may be happening that some people are seeing, I know it's not fun.
Yeah.
But for people like that, if you want to get hands-on, processing at home can be incredibly inexpensive. And scanning is getting easier and easier too with camera scanning.
Correct.
And it's really empowering to process your own film.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I wonder, do other art forms talk about the cost of it? Like the history of photography, like even when Edwin was talking about his camera and his first roll and it cost too much. I mean, it's always going to cost too much. It's how much are you willing to pay for your art form? Do painters talk about how much a brush is? There's $40 paint brushes. There's, $100 paint. We buy cameras that are super expensive, though. Why not?
Is Angelique here?
You got to feed that
Hello,
camera.
Angelique. Sorry, I'm still in.
Oh, sorry. No, I think if it's your passion, you find the money. If it's not your passion, then you find ways around that also, but maybe at some point you'll come back to it and find that the priority of your pocketbook will go to your passions more than your vices.
Yeah.
But I think there's also a case to be made that, there's a case to be made that if all you want to do is make snaps with your cell phone, that's cool, and that's really great. So go out and do that. If you want to do more than that, then, if you're going to be investing a lot of money in the newest digital camera every couple of years, because that's what they're designed to be, they're only designed to be used for a few years before you have to get a new one, then I think it's not really more expensive to shoot film by any means. As soon as you get beyond the point where you say, okay, I'm happy with what my cell phone can do, because I mean, these days, everybody has a pretty good camera in their phone, or at least most people do. And so,
$1,000 camera.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, you have $1,000 camera that you can make calls with, which is cool. But as soon as you want to go beyond that, then I think digital and film, there's not a whole lot of difference. And
it also brings the point, nobody discusses about the next iPhone, which will be 10% more expensive than the last one.
Here's the thing.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. You're going to throw it away afterwards, by the way. It's just batteries exhausted. You cannot repair it.
You get a 2-year contract, and you don't want to upgrade before that because you're still paying off the last one, and then you want the new one. Like film is that's the phones are a great case study. People love their phones, and no one needs a phone that we use today. Like I remember when we used to have like little flip phones. How much did we pay for those? But it's nice. It has a little camera in it. It's become a lifestyle. Film is also a lifestyle, and people will pay for it to enjoy it. But it is speaking from the manufacturing side and providing a product. It is a concern of ours. I think that a lot of people get too overly concerned, but I think we have insight into that. Film's not going to get priced out of the market, but it is a concern because our costs go up, and that's why costs tend to go up. We try to keep our prices the same as long as possible. We make less and less profit, even though we're growing, because we don't want to raise the price of film. We'd rather just make more of it. And that's going to be the sentiment with every film manufacturer. They're not gouging. If anybody's concerned about that, they're not going to just price themselves out of the market. You'll see discontinued films get expensive. That's natural supply and demand. But anything currently being made, everyone providing it wants to provide it as much as possible because it's more efficient to make more of it. So they don't want to price themselves so high that they make less of it.
Yeah,
But also these, I want Kodak to have really high margins on their film.
Yes.
That way, the big company that is Kodak can look at the 8% of the company that is analog film and say, we're keeping that.
That's carrying us.
Yeah, we're not dumping that for some other idea of printers or whatever, or some digital thing we want to do.
I think, all the parts of the market are kind of
We want it to be a
adjusting.
thriving industry for the
This feeling. Yeah.
affordable as possible, but also the businesses that support it, the infrastructure, it needs to be profitable. Unfortunately, it's less so for us because we are a very small company.
Yeah.
Profitability, we sacrifice it from time to time to make the right things, to do what we're passionate about. You can't do that when you have shareholders. And so Kodak needs to be profitable in the photo industry. So you see that last year, the price increase, it wasn't frivolous. It was probably necessary, and it was probably overdue.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was a big jump, and it hurt a lot of people as far as their
Scared
confidence in being able to afford it.
I mean, we just have to see
I'm confident.
that we came out of the 2005 crisis where film dropped and everybody and the market was overflown with film, and people still believe that the prices you paid, I think 1 or 2 euros per roll of film at the time, that was the standard, which was not. And I just remember as a student, when we went on a tour with our class, I just could afford 3 films for a 2-week trip. So because it was, one film was around 15 marks, which is nowadays 15 euros. So it's kind of like the prices are nearly similar. And at the time, that was more, that was even higher considered to today.
Yeah, the 80s and 90s compared to now with inflation, I think we're still getting a bargain for the high quality materials we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we have time for one more question, even though we're actually over time, but we'll just keep going and hope everybody sticks with us.
Nobody needs to leave. We just take the next question.
Because it's just so much fun. So we were talking, we got a question about actually the possibility of manufacturing and machining spare parts for existing camera models, which I think is a very good point. And I think it's possibly the best way to talk about it or think about it in this group of people is to say we're just talking about film as being in kind of a transition stage from the huge market that it was before the crash, as we could say. And I think that we need to also see something similar happening with cameras. And it's been very difficult for any new cameras to be manufactured. So what are ways forward? You know, what kind of new cameras might be able to be put out that could help out? Or are we just going to be really repairing old cameras and manufacturing new parts for old cameras? Or What do you guys think is going to be the future for the camera half of the equation?
I think when analog photography keeps growing like it does right now, then it would be profitable for companies like Nikon or Pentax or Ricoh to build a new camera or to reintroduce an old model. So they have new stock from, for instance, the FM3 or the older the Pentax K1000. Those models last a lifetime, but still, if they were to be produced again, I think that a lot of people would buy cameras like that.
But you can see that at Catawiki that there is an increasing demand.
Yeah, there is an increasing demand, and especially you see the trends in kinds of cameras that are in demand. And the popular ones are Canon AE1s. Canon A1, the analog cameras just before the autofocus was introduced. Those are very expensive right now. I can't buy a Canon AE1 completely functional for under 150 euros.
Right.
And that's I think it's kind of ridiculous.
Because I just think in German marks, it was around 300 German marks. When it came out, it was around 400. So it's really close to the price where it was sold back in the days.
Yeah. And but the lenses made for those cameras are remarkable. Even the cheap ones are very good, and take the better ones, the coated ones and stuff. They are remarkable, and I see a lot of people using them on digital cameras or remounting them. But, I think there's some people in Canada that remount the FD lenses to EF. So you can...
Right.
Oh, I think Edwin is frozen.
Well, the one thing with the Canon AE1 that whenever it triggers me like, the battery door's broken. With Canon AE1s, we've been around long enough. We know that those battery doors will break. So we have the information that we need to know of what camera models need what repaired, what parts can be easily done, and how-to videos on how to do it yourself is great. But didn't Hasselblad just come out with not a hybrid, but a digital back that you can put on like a 503 or something?
Yeah, but they do that for years. You can put digital backs on the 501s and the 503s.
But it was going to be more affordable or something. Now they
just came out with one. It's a mirrorless designed body and a 50 megapixel back that they made it so it was still compatible to go on the 501, which is a great story right there. That they could have made a mirrorless camera like Fuji did. They made a mirrorless.
Well, they did actually.
I mean, they did. They have that camera as well, but that was what's cool about this one is it can go both ways.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to make our older cameras get the parts made.
Yeah,
we have to be flexible.
But
I don't know. I think that this is good people are concerned about this because someone needs to come up with good ideas of how to 3D print parts out of a carbon-based 3D printing material.
That's harder than
plastic. So that when you replace the battery door, it's actually not going to break again.
Yeah.
Technology has been improving in these things, like making parts. There still are plenty of lenses being made. You don't need to. We have a 7 Artisans here. It's a great lens.
We just got this little 7 Artisans lens that they made for mirrorless cameras, obviously.
Yeah.
You know what they did? They made it work on the rangefinder.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. 7 Artisans.
Yeah, they're a Chinese company. It's a pretty cool.
They make
good lenses, but this is a brand new company with brand new optics.
Yeah. So lenses are
they made intentionally to work also with rangefinder cameras, which is not the majority of the market.
Yeah. Nice.
But it's big enough that they're listening to us.
Yeah.
We want more cameras.
Exactly. But lenses are
just recently, 2 weeks ago, we visited in Bad Kreuznach, the city where Schneider is located, a company called Meyer-Görlitz. They also produce there the lenses. I could see definitely how they shape the lenses. They do aspherical lenses there, and they just reproduced old lenses from the 1950s from Meyer-Görlitz to give this we have an article about that in the magazine to give these interesting soap bubble bouquet and stuff like that. So we were talking with them, and they just said they can even do very small runs of design. So if we just come with a new idea, discuss that with them, and their entire production is very, very flexible.
Oh, very
Yeah.
good.
That up a little
It's easy.
bit. There's the soap bubble bouquet, new lenses. Yeah.
Well, I need a copy. Yeah.
We're
We'll
going to
get
send you
one
one.
I'm afraid I have to say goodbye to Jan in absentia. He had some people waiting for him.
Yeah.
Bye, Jan.
Goodbye.
But yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Sorry
Nice
that
to
it
meet
took
you.
so long.
This was really cool and was a privilege to be part of this. Thank you very much for putting this on and inviting me. Thank you. Greetings from Paris.
We will talk later. Okay.
Exactly.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for
Bye-bye.
being here. Bye. Yeah, so I think we should probably take that as our cue to wrap it up, because we do say that these things take about an hour, but we almost always end up chatting for longer than that just because we have such great guests. So, and this was no exception. So thank you all for being great guests. Sorry. Bye, Jan.
Bye.
Yeah, so this has been it's been such a pleasure to chat with you, and thank you for coming by. And Ludwig is going to bring up our last slide now. It's got some information about everybody.
It's kinda like-
Yeah. So if any of our viewers would like to see where you can find more information about all of the guests and their companies, then the websites are up right there. You can also, at the silvergrainclosets.com website, you can buy not only our magazine, but also the handbook for the Highland split grade controller, which I introduced at the beginning of the episode. And yeah, we are very happy that you were all with us today, and we hope that everybody will join us for our next Fireside Chat. We don't have a date for that yet, but we will definitely be letting everyone know per email. So stay tuned and continue to stay safe as the world reopens.
And after editing this episode, we'll have it on YouTube sooner or later.
Sooner or later, exactly. All right, so thank you very much.
Well, it's a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
We'll keep in touch.